Now we're going to talk about epigenetics and fibroids. What are epigenetics? So by now, many people have an understanding of what epigenetics are. Epigenetics are the things that change the expression of genes, and that can be passed through us for many generations. Epigenetics are the things we do or the things we don't do, what we believe, what we think, what we don't believe, what we don't think, the environment we live in, the relationships and experiences we have. These are all epigenetics. These are all things that can remodel our genes or the expression of our genes and change the way we live in our body. So the epigenetic risk factors for fibroids go way back. They go back even into the intrauterine life of the baby and neonates. And what we know is that if these babies have exposure to endocrine disruptor chemicals, their epigenome will be reprogrammed for life if they don't do anything. And that this programming is activated because of more epigenetics, like the Western diet, high in processed foods, fat, cholesterol, fructose. And this will then change, kind of activate that altered epigenome in a way that is pro-fibroid. You can also be exposed to the endocrine disruptive chemicals at any point in your life. And this also is pro-fibroid. So let's say here, you're a tiny baby in utero, or you're just a tiny baby been born, and they call it early hit. So you get exposure to those endocrine disruptive chemicals, and you start with a normal uterus, a normal myometrium, the muscles in the uterus. But then what happens is that you're going to start having modifications because of that early genetic hit. And that is going to start changing the coding for gene expression and gene stability and cellular development. And that can lead all the way down here, reprogramming a stem cell, and then in later life, the tumor initiating stem cells. If you have a later hit in your childhood or early adulthood, you can become hyper-responsive to stress hormones because of those endocrine disruptive chemicals. If you overlay that with vitamin D deficiency, inflammation, obesity, hypertension, alcohol, unhealthy diet, dysbiosis, then you're going to have a uterus that's at risk. The muscle cells will be at risk. The cells will be reprogrammed, and then there will differentiate into those fibroid cells and have those tumor-initiating stem cells. So the outcome as an adult is fibrosis, DNA damage, too much of that extracellular matrix, that collagen, that fibrous mass being laid down, immune suppression, inhibit the natural death of cells, and have abnormal cell proliferation. That is how we get the fibroids. And that is how epigenetics plays a role, especially those endocrine disrupting chemicals. So what are they? What are the endocrine disrupting chemicals? In general, they're environmental substances that interfere with your body's ability to run its own endocrine system. So it can be in food, it can be in the things you put on your body, the things you wear, what you sit on, the air you breathe. It can be anything that's manufactured. These endocrine disrupting chemicals act as hormone mimics. They block your natural hormones and they act as hormone mimics. And they impact how natural hormones are either made or broken down and can lead to the production of fibroids. So some of the endocrine disruptor chemicals are organophosphate pesticides. And so those will be found on fruits and vegetables, for instance. 17-alpha ethinyl estradiol is part of the synthetic estrogen in oral birth control. Fire retardants, phthalates for making plastics flexible. BPA to give durability to plastics. Perchlorate found in fertilizers and explosives. Arsenic is in water and rice because it's in the land. Perfluorinated chemicals that are in the non-stick pans, for instance. Mercury is in seafood, light bulbs, and in dental amalgams, for instance. And dioxin is a byproduct of industrial processes. These types of endocrine disruptors can cause a lot of problems related to the endocrine system. When we're talking about the endocrine system, we're primarily talking about thyroid and reproductive issues, whether that's infertility or if it's insulin resistance, that would be related to like PCOS and infertility. And it promotes cancer related to diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and that's basically the overview. Some pretty bad things that are not uncommon right now, that are pretty common. So again, we're talking about examples. The phthalates are in your lotions and things like that, children's products, plastics, polychlorinated biphenyls, PCBs are in industrial solvents, lubricants, electronics, building materials. Dioxins are in industrial solvents. Glyphosate is in pesticides like Roundup, and BPA is in plastics. So awesome, right? I'll just avoid it, right? I'm just going to avoid bisphenols, right? Because I see on my bottle it says BPA free. But if you have a bottle, let's say a baby bottle, that says BPA free, it will still have some bisphenol in it. It may be BPB, BPC, because now those aren't regulated yet. And so, but it does the same thing because they're all bisphenols, right? So there's a whole range of them. And so right now, they're not all regulated. And so you're going to get something if you have a substance that has the qualities of making the plastic durable, like for a bottle or a plate or something like that, a storage vessel. So again, just to recap, conditions that the endocrine disrupting chemicals are associated with are the problems with fertility. That includes endometriosis, adenomyosis, fibroids, early puberty that we're seeing now. Girls are going into puberty a couple years early, boys are going early. Nervous system and immune function, metabolic issues, obesity. Who isn't obese now? Who doesn't have prediabetes now? Cancers, breathing problems, heart health, growth, neurologic and learning disabilities, all are associated with endocrine disrupting chemicals. So the sad part of it is that these endocrine disrupting chemicals are not just in your bottle or your plate or your curtains or your carpet. These endocrine disrupting chemicals will throw that stuff away, and then it gets into the soil, and then it rains, and then it gets into the water source. And so these These endocrine disrupting chemicals permeate our contemporary environment. They are xenobiotics, and so they act as our natural hormones. They mimic our hormones. They cannot completely biodegrade, so they are with us forever. They cannot, once they get in the water, they cannot be completely bioremediated by conventional water treatment. And so they're in the water you swim in, they're in the water you bathe in, they are in the water you drink. Even if you buy spring water in a plastic bottle, more than likely you're going to get some EDCs. And also they bioaccumulate. And so that means that they let's say so in natural medicine we always say eat the sardine instead of the tuna, right? Because that's bioaccumulation. Bioaccumulation is biomagnification. And so the heavy metals that are found in a tuna are much greater than the heavy metals that are found in a sardine. And so that's the same thing with these endocrine disruptors. They biomagnify. The more that they accumulate, they magnify. Air pollution is another risk for fibroids. And I'm not sure about now, but before, the EPA used to consider particulate matter to be the pollutant category most damaging for human health. Chronic exposure to particulate matter 2.5 microns large, along with exposure to ozone, increases the risk for symptomatic fibroids. Air pollution increases the risk also for infertility, menstrual irregularity, and endometriosis. So, I mean, some of this is stuff that you'll be doing, right? So if you smoke, let's say, if you cook smoky food, if, fry or something like that. So you can create this particulate matter. But a lot of the particulate matter is actually created by industry and things like that. Things that are outside of your control and that need policy and regulation to make go away. 2 daily alcohol drinks increases the risk for uterine fibroids. And this could be because alcohol promotes steroidal hormones, growth factors, cytokines, and also DNA damage. There are inconsistent findings about cigarette smoking and fibroids. It could be that the studies so far are not universally associating cigarette smoking with fibroids because smokers have lower estrone and estradiol levels. And so in a way that's protective.